How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lo4f, and today I'm going to go and do another contract. This one's called Fertilizer Trouble. I'm starting on the Crossroads map. I've got a bit of a trek. I've got to sort of go across the Crossroads map to the Institute map and then up to the Harvest Court map. Yeah, and you've got to search an area. It says you could do with a metal detector, but you don't really need one. So yeah, setting off from the Crossroads map, I'm going to nip over to the trailer store so I can get a trailer, and then head up to the gateway. Yeah, mainly you need a trailer, so that's why. Well, there's no garage anyway, I suppose, on the Institute map, so I was going to have to start from the Crossroads map or the Heartlands map, I suppose. And yeah, for this one, I've got the Paystar. Is it the 5070 or something? I don't think I've used it so far on this phase. I can't actually remember now if I have, though. I don't think it would have been for very long. Of course, an ambulance chooses right now to drive past. I swear they just do it to there'll be traffic or something. I thought I was supposed to be on strike. But yeah, I don't think I have used this vehicle before. It's one of them where I remember doing the review on this. I also remember there was some kind of trial, which, to be honest, thinking about it, I've probably got quite a few trials left to do that I never really got round to. But yeah, it can be a little bit on the tippy side, so it was a little bit of a risk taking it for this mission. I will say, I kind of noticed the those running over the sunflowers was actually quite a good gauge for it, but considering this thing hasn't got like the biggest tyres on it, one thing that is nice, the suspension does sit nice and high, which you can kind of tell because, again, yeah, running over the sunflowers, if it sat really low, you kind of see them over the bonnet and everything, but whereas this sits quite tall, considering it's not the biggest truck going. And then, yeah, obviously taking a goddamn horse with me for spares and repairs and that. I'm just towing him behind me at the minute, but as I'm heading over to the trailer store, I'll get him on the trailer in a minute. And yeah, for this mission, like I said, it's one of them where I'm glad they've done it this way, to be honest, like where you don't actually have to take the metal detector, because it's a bit of a pain in the arse and a waste of time. For one, like once you find the cistern, you've got to lift it onto the trailer, so you'd also need a crane. So if you were forced to take a metal detector as well, you'd have to take two trucks, just one for the metal detector. And I think the cistern already shows up on the map. If it doesn't, it's pretty close to where you get to anyway, and once you get there and you enter like this little blue square, and then it says stage 1 complete or whatever, yeah, once you look then on the map, you can actually just see it, so it's not that difficult. And the only thing I think they should have probably done different for this mission in general are these cisterns, because I had to move two of them, well, I was going to say the other day, it's kind of spaced out. I kept doing it over multiple days, that bloody damage evaluation mission, or contract. Yeah, the cisterns that are a 5-slot cargo, which I think it would have been better if they made it a 4-slot cargo, because particularly these days that the cranes are so weak on these vehicles, like the little cranes in particular, although the big cranes are pretty terrible considering the size of them. But at least if they made it a 4-slot cargo, you could take like a truck with a big crane and then have a ramped flatbed behind you, so it'd be a little bit easier to load and all the rest of it. And again, since they seem to have broken these cranes to the point they're mostly useless, if they kind of want to encourage us to have to take a big crane for bigger cargo, then yeah, the fact that it's a 5-slot cargo, you're sort of forced at that point to have a saddle low and all the rest of it. And again, if you really wanted to bring a big crane, and then they made you take a metal detector as well, you'd have to have like 3 vehicles going along just to kind of do the mission officially how they want you to do it. But yeah, for this one, I've got the, what's it called, the step deck. Again, like a 5-slot cargo, I've also got a little step deck for the goddamn horse. The only other option really, I suppose, is that, what's it called, the sideboard semi-trailer, which overall I quite like. I used to use that quite a bit. And then I kind of switched to this step deck, because back in the day it used to skid really well, even when you like ground out on the bottom of it. It'd just kind of be like a little sled, and you could just pull it along, and it wouldn't really snag into the ground or anything. Whereas, yeah, these days I'm not sure if they've done like some little stealth background update on the trailers, because yeah, the ramped flatbed seems to be behaving unusually well recently. And this thing is not a bad trailer by any means. If you've got a nice big powerful truck and that, then it doesn't really matter. But yeah, this just used to feel like it had no effect when it was bottoming out on the floor. But These days it does slow down a little bit. Again though, because the suspension is nice and high on this truck at least, it sits high enough that it was never really much of an issue. The main thing, again, that was worrying me with this vehicle is it's a little bit on the tippy side. And I think actually, maybe there was, I was going to say, like, the dual rear tyres, maybe with the chains, I can't remember. Nearly started going then. To be honest, this mission, I got half of the footage yesterday, and then got the rest of it tonight. I was planning on doing the video yesterday, but, yeah, stuff kept going wrong, and then when I press the whatever button it is, option button or something, to save the footage, you have to wait for like the little menu thing to come up and save the footage. And I pressed the button and it wouldn't bring the menu up, and then just after I pressed the button again it brought the menu up and then cancelled it, so I kind of lost like a big chunk of footage in the middle. So then I started the mission again basically. This is like the original footage when I set off, but after I messed that up I just kind of like reset everything back to the Crossroads garage, deleted the trailer, went and got another trailer and just got back to the Institute map and kind of got the footage from there again, as I yeah, lost a bit of a fat chunk in the middle, and it was kind of footage that, I don't know, it was just going to be messier to restage it than just call it a day, hit restart on the mission. I'd got the system and everything just, so thankfully it wasn't too much, but it was, yeah, kind of like right slap bang in the middle of the video, which didn't really help. Just grab a bit of fuel on my way past. This thing wasn't too terrible for fuel. I wouldn't say it's great, but there's definitely vehicles that nail it a lot quicker. I've noticed as well the last couple of days particularly, but I think it's probably been going on a little bit longer, I keep getting really bad frame rate issues going on, to the point where it reminds me of like, yeah, phase 2 or season 2, whatever the hell they call it these days, with the Yukon, where that was having like really bad frame rate issues. There's not really any fog on these maps, they're actually pretty clear to be fair, but it seemed to be the fog that was causing it on phase 2, whereas yeah, I just keep getting really big patches where it does it, and I don't know, after a while it sort of, I don't know, it just drives me mad. Anyway, I made it this far, and I think now was the point where I lost the footage. So then, oh no, this was still, I was getting this footage yesterday, but it was kind of like the tail end. I sort of knew by now I'd missed my opportunity to get all the video done and everything. Yeah, there's the square you've got to drive to where it says scan the area, but you can see in the trees just back here a big long pipe. Yeah, that's what she said. Yeah, so it was kind of pretty obvious where it was anyway, so like I said, metal detector not really needed, bit of a waste of time. I'm sure it was with the best of intentions. It was a bit of a pain in the ass. I remember, was it back on, it might have been phase 1, Lake Covden, Imandra, where we had to go and find those armoured vehicles for some bizarre reason, and yeah, that ended up being a bit of a pain in the ass, because, I don't know, the metal detectors, they're just a bit like, I'm sure back in, like on phase 1 we could hit the button and keep constantly detecting, whereas I'm sure now it doesn't even offer you the option or something unless you're pretty close already, but it's like, how do you know you're close? I don't know, it's a bit of a, yeah, not the smoothest of devices on this game. Again, thankfully we rarely have to use it. And this truck is not terrible for lack of power, but again, with the broken gearboxes, I didn't really mind for whatever reason. It didn't feel like too much of a bad truck to just drop it down in low range. At least you have got the option of diffs on and all that. I mean, prime example though, yeah, this particularly was when I knew yesterday I wasn't going to get all the footage and everything done in time, because yeah, I'm sure by now this is where I'd already drove back for attempt number 2, because I'd lost the footage. So right now I was like, yeah, obviously we'll have to use the goddamn horse to get me out of there. But you see, back in the day, I've said this as well, I think they've fiddled with, like, the Lo4f would fire its engine up for fun already by now. Like, I can just tell from the angle. There's one thing I do know is my Lo4f angles he would have fired up. Yeah, as it was laying on the side, I just kept doing, like, just messing around kind of thing. detaching and attaching the trailer, so it kept bumping the loaf a little bit. Also, if you click restore crane like repeatedly, the crane sort of sinks into the floor because it's kind of making it, I don't know, like there's no hitbox to it for a split second as it restores it, and then when you stop pressing the button it kind of reactivates that it's got a hitbox and sort of pushes it back out of the ground a bit. So you can see, like, I was messing around, I think it was on the first attempt, I managed to pretty much make the truck roll onto its roof and roll to the other side. I managed to get the crane to sink enough. Yeah, eventually though, I think at some point my mum popped round, so I had a coffee. And then yeah, by the time I got back, that's what I just thought was a perfect chance. I'll leave the goddamn horse to do his thing. He sank down a little bit, and we got out of there. Destroyed a fence. No offence. And then now, I was just reversing into it. It doesn't really matter, but instead of tipping the truck over, it just kind of like bananaed the angle of the trailer to the truck. So I'll have to sort that out in a second, because it makes it a little bit more awkward to flick it over. I think this truck as well, yeah, it's not got very many winch points. I need more trucks like that's one nice thing as well with the Navistar, that it has like the winch points at the top of the cab, which make it a lot more handy when you try and flip it over. A lot of these vehicles, even though they sit however wide they do, you yeah, often just get the winch points kind of on the chassis, which overall is pretty narrow. So you can see there, yeah, pretty crap choice of winch points, but I stuck a winch to the front of the truck just to kind of line it up again with the trailer, so it'll be easier to flip. In the end, it was better doing a winch to the actual trailer, because at least that, like, the winch point's on the edge of the trailer, so you kind of get a bit more width. Yeah, that's what she said, of course. And then, yep, goddamn horse, he gets the job done. He gets his victory horn. Save my bacon as usual, and then yeah, switch back to the Paystar. Get the old loaf loaded on. I already know at this point, I've just got to drive up to the square, kind of just down the road, but the cistern is pretty much behind those trees. I'm probably nearer to it now. I'm basically driving further away from it at this point. Of course, change the time of day, because midday only lasts like 10 seconds. So yeah, once you drive to that square, stage completed, but again at this point, especially as I lost like the footage where I drove to that square and then to the cistern and everything, hence why I restarted it. Yeah, so I already knew where it was at this point. I think I did this mission like ages ago on my live stream. I don't even know how I unlocked it so quickly, to be honest, because I thought this one had kind of been locked for a little while. And yeah, there it is, trying to go around these trees, ended up kind of it's the back end of the trailer's got snagged on one of those trees back there. All I did was a winch to the back of the trailer, to the tree I'm kind of like midway down the trailer. Just kept flooring it, letting off, and yeah, we eventually got out of there. And at this point, I know it's not even worth trying these days, because if I left the trailer attached and reached out with a crane, one, the crane's going to struggle like hell to lift it. At least this is the American crane, which is still pretty weak and crap, but for whatever reason the blue Russian crane is like horrifically broken these days. But yeah, even if I managed to get it onto the trailer, there was a time where it wasn't really moaning about when it says impossible to pack cargo, but again, for the last month or so, it seems like they've made it a lot more severe and moany, and yeah, so it was just easier to disconnect from the trailer, even though I don't like to, out of sheer stubbornness. Because again, like, it actually did let me pack it this time, but I could just as easily reverse up, reattach the trailer, and then it says impossible to pack because it's like on a slight little angle. So yeah, it's more faffing around really. Again, I don't like, it's the sorts of things they do, like I say, where you know, they make the cranes weak, but they made this a 5 slot, so you can't really take a ramped flatbed and a big crane. Yeah, the loading the cargo, it's like being awkward, but you've got to keep like detaching and reattaching the trailer just to find out if it's even going to let you pack the cargo. And then I believe now is the footage I started getting tonight. I got that packed and everything, and then yeah, time was ticking a bit, although in the end I couldn't sleep again. Didn't go to sleep. I had to get back up. Had scrambled eggs and bacon, which was pretty nice. And then I tried going to sleep again for a bit, and now, to be fair, I've not got a migraine, I've just got a headache. I don't actually feel like sick and dizzy, thankfully. Which reminds me as well, yeah, apologies for the live stream the other day where I had to kind of cut it short pretty abruptly. I don't know what was going on, but I, you know, kind of when you stand up after you've been sat for a while or whatever, and you go like lightheaded for a minute. It was sort of like that, but it didn't wear off after 5 or 10 seconds, and yeah, I felt to the point where I was about to either pass out or throw up, and I thought I really don't want to, on live stream, either have to nip off pretty quick and be sick, or you just suddenly hear like a thud where I hit the floor, and then yeah, I'm kind of not moving for a while. So in the end, thankfully, I didn't actually drop. I was pretty close though. I don't know, yeah, definitely didn't feel good. I don't know, for this last week or so, I felt pretty rough, to be honest. God knows, trying to, as I didn't go to sleep yesterday or earlier, whatever time it is now, I'll see if I can sort of reset myself a little bit. You can see in the end why, like, Michael Jackson kept getting anaesthesia and all that. I don't blame him. Especially when he's, especially if you're like multi-millionaire and you've got doctors around that are like, well, I can get you this stuff. I'll get you off in a matter of seconds. And to be fair, it does work pretty well. I've been in hospital a few times, I think when I split my head open, when they were operating on my cheek, and then when they operated on my knee, and yeah, that stuff works pretty damn well. I remember as well, I think it was when I went in for the operation with my, when they were operating on my cheek, and yeah, I can't remember, I think it was it gas and air, or did they inject me with something? I can't remember, but I remember them saying, like, I have a really clear memory of it, it was just before I passed out, but they were saying, yep, you'll start counting to 10 or whatever, and then you'll be asleep before you get to 10, and I believe I managed to count to 10, and I was like, oh, this stuff's not working. And then my stepdad was in there, and they made him wear, like, you know, like a hairnet, but for shoes, and he had them on. I just remember looking at them and started pissing myself laughing for about a second, just as my head went back laughing. Bang, was gone. And then, yeah, I have a really clear memory of that. That was the time as well when, I've said before, I woke up, I don't know at what point through the operation. I don't think they were literally operating on my head, but I don't know if, like, my face was kind of half open at that point, if they were mid-operation. Yeah, it kind of like, it's pretty accurate, like the same as in the films, where I just opened my eyes and could see like the textbook cliche hospital lights on the roof that are like the, you know, the tube lights with I don't know, there's like sort of a metal mirror-y grate going across them, like those little squares. Took a few seconds to think, where the hell am I? And then yeah, I remembered, like, oh yeah, I'm in the hospital. Looked over at, there was 3 or 4 like nurses and surgeons looking around a clipboard, and then yeah, one of the nurses spotted that I'd woken back up, and then she grabbed it. I assume it must have been gas and air, put a mask over my face. I remember trying to fight it for a little bit, well, a little bit, like a second if that, and then I was gone again. And the next time I woke up, I was out of the operating room. It was 8 hours though it took them to operate on me, on my cheek. A good old while. Yeah, we made it through that bit. You can see there's a few times my truck almost tipped at one point. I steered out of it, and it was about as close as you can get without actually tipping. Crossing that river though was alright in the end. There's one river crossing on this map that's a complete tosser, which I purposely made sure to avoid. It's the one where, yeah, there's like a broken wooden bridge section leading to it, and then, yeah, there's just wooden posts sticking out of the ground and all sorts. It's terrible. Whoever designed that, there's no fun to be had. There's no logical, enjoyable way to outsmart it. It's just a complete pain in the ass. Even if it was the quickest route, I'd recommend just going around a different way. And then I usually end up going this way. I quite like this route in the end. There's a bit of river driving, yeah, that river crossing is not too bad. You get a bit of roads. Although again, whatever they've done, I don't even know if they've specifically broken the gearboxes. I think it's more that they've, yeah, added, I don't know, just like the equivalent resistance of super mud or whatever. on the roads. So even though it looks like, and you are driving along like a relatively smooth tarmac road, it just acts like it's going, like there's a lot more resistance going on. And it just, yeah, this truck particularly has not got enough power. Fourth, fifth gear, as soon as you get into fifth it starts trying to drop you back down to third gear and all sorts. And then at this point, like with the system on and all the rest of it, as you can see, for the most part, it's, you definitely got to pay attention when you're driving, because this thing does kind of want to tip over. So you're best off kind of snaking it around a little bit. If you're on an angle to your trailer, it's just harder for the game to like tip you over. It's when you're in a perfectly straight line like this that it gets a bit risky. And that worked out pretty nicely, because the snorkel on this Paystar is kind of just above the bonnet, but not completely, so it doesn't go right up to the roof like quite a few trucks. But to be fair, I don't even think I took any engine damage or anything. It was about as close as you can get. And it did alright across there. I've made sure to go like pretty diagonal over that river, because again this thing tips quite badly and the current would have took me with it. But yeah, go on the diagonal and it just, you get to a point where, if anything, the current probably like helps try and push you down the river. But yeah, as you're going diagonal you sort of slowly cross it. And then yeah, made it over that bit. Now heading to the what's it called, the Harvest Court map. And there is as well now, coming up on the right, I was just trying to think if there might be a possibility you could do this mission before having that warehouse thing on the right unlocked. I could have gone in there. There is like a truck repair station and a fuel station, but again, I've brought my goddamn loaf. He's got supplies and fuel and all the rest of it, so who needs repair stations? And yeah, I don't know, I'm sure on this, like my normal playthrough, it didn't let me unlock this mission until like fairly recently. Whereas yeah, I must have done this mission ages ago on my mod playthrough, so God knows. I was just thinking, like, I probably didn't have that warehouse with like the refueling and truck repair thing unlocked at this point. And again, to be fair, this thing isn't like terrible on fuel. It's a pretty nice balance overall. The truck, like, it's not a terrible truck by any means. I just don't end up using it a lot. I suppose particularly for some of the previous phases we've had, they've been pretty brutal phases in various places, so I end up taking like the more stronger trucks. Yeah, this phase is at least a bit more chilled out if you pick the right route and all the rest of it, so it's given me a good chance to yeah, take quite a few vehicles out that I don't normally take. And yeah, this thing, I'd say it's not the most powerful, but again, it's not nailing the fuel. It's kind of a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. It doesn't do anything amazing, but it's not really horrific at anything. Like I said, the tipping would be the worst thing, and that's just kind of partly a byproduct of like its suspension sits nice and high, so it gets a little bit boaty. And then yeah, now I'm on the Harvest Court map. I could cut across that bridge since I built it and I'd just reconnect there, but I actually quite like crossing this section. It's a little another river crossing to do. You can see the big windmills in the background. And then yeah, got to take it to this farm and just drop it off. It's only, I suppose, a little bit north, yeah, with the way the map's rotated, of the garage. Which I have to say, unless I force myself to use it, it doesn't really feel like there is a garage on this map, even though I literally do have one. But yeah, unless I sort of specifically remember, I keep even setting missions up, like setting off from different garages, and the 2 or 3 times I've used that Harvest Court garage, I kind of realise at the last minute and then readjust the mission just to use it. But yeah, it doesn't really feel like a proper garage that's sort of integrated with the rest of the map. It feels a little bit, I don't know. It'll do, it's better than nothing, at least as far as like if you want to recover vehicles you have to keep loading to different maps, because that was one thing when I missed the footage on the Institute map yesterday. Yeah, just to recover the vehicles is I had to, and for what it's worth, when you're on the Institute map, obviously when you used to hit recover it'd make you go, I think it was to Heartlands, because you don't have a garage on the Institute map, but now I have the Harvest Court garage unlocked. It made me go to the Harvest Court map, then I had to reload back to the Institute map, recovered me loaf, deleted the trailer, Then it loaded me back to Harvest Court, then I had to load over to Crossroads. So again, yeah, that's the side of it I do appreciate, having a garage on every map. To go low range with diffs on, but again, for whatever reason, I don't know, like, a lot of trucks I really don't like having to go down into low range. Maybe it's just because I've sort of automatically accepted that this isn't the most powerful vehicle, so I think, yeah, when you get like one of the biggest, best vehicles in the game and the game's forcing you to go down into the low ranges when you sort of feel like you don't really need to, feels like, yeah, you're having your arm twisted to do it. But I suppose with this sort of vehicle, it's just balance wise, I kind of accepted when I picked the truck that there was going to be sections where it's not going to be too happy about it. Like I say, at least you do have the all-wheel drive and diff option. It's better than not having it. I'm going up that hill. I think, yeah, I was in low range, then I went into auto. It was not liking it at first. To be fair though, particularly along these roads, this vehicle was fairly decent at getting into second gear, and once it's in second gear it'd let you go into high range and like wind up to speed. As you can see, it's yeah, sort of ticks along quite nicely. And like I say, because this does tip relatively easily, it sort of does keep you on your toes a little bit. It's definitely not one of them vehicles you can just, as I do sometimes, like stick a YouTube video on and then I'm not even watching the screen, watching some other video or listening to them and not really paying attention. But this one, you kind of, especially like the pretty deep ruts in this road, once it starts taking you with it, sometimes you got to sort of let it just go with it, because if you try and steer out of it, you'll roll. That thing on the news yesterday morning as well, it was saying in Australia they lost like some kind of radioactive stuff, and I think they've found it now. It was like some, I don't know, about the size of like a 10-cent piece or whatever that is. I assume an Australian cent. Yeah, and then it was saying as they're driving along, like the vibrations of the road must have made the screws come loose and it fell out. And it's like, what kind of amateur operation is going on where the vibrations make the screws come loose? You know, even have like a, I don't know, like one of those safety pin kind of things like you have on race car bonnets. But yeah, again, in the end they found it. So if you see like a 60-foot radioactive kangaroo in the next few months, you know who to blame. Makes you wonder really, doesn't it, like how many things, like, you know, if they found that quickly before the news broke, they'd probably just never tell us. It's like, as well, I remember watching it, was probably a little while ago now, but America's lost like, I don't know how many nukes off the coast and all sorts. It's pretty crazy. Well, I still vote we need to set just one more nuke off. Get like, you know, 4K cameras, HD, all that good stuff. And funnily enough now, I'm only like literally yards from my destination. I kind of forgot about the fuel. Yeah, starts running out at this point. To be fair, it started jiggling around at like 10 odd litres left, but it was actually still driving forward a little bit, unlike some trucks that just immediately throw in the towel. However, yeah, kind of ran out of juice, and you see, if I didn't have the goddamn horse of a vehicle, even though I'm mere yards away, it'd be a right disaster now for making a video. I'd have to go and get a different vehicle. To be fair, I suppose at least on this there is the Harvest Court garage fairly nearby, but again, the loaf saves me bacon. Robbed a bit of fuel out of his tank, didn't even dip into the roof rack, and we made it the last truck length. Drop, yeah, the cistern off, there's no animation or anything going on. It just seems like another mission that they kind of added for the sakes of it, really. Doesn't sort of seem too blended into the overall theme of the game. It says farm unlocked. It tries to make it seem like some world event, but there's not a lot going on. I just left this bit in quickly. I don't know why. Like, after I did the mission, I was just looking around the map, and then I realised there's like a yellow exclamation mark on exclamation, I think I said explanation. Yeah, on my truck. I don't know why. There's no mission here. There's no mission activated. There's nothing special about the truck going on. I don't know what that was all about, but I just thought I'd leave it in, as it was yeah, a bit random. I never usually notice that kind of stuff before. And yeah, anyway, that's about it. It was 7,750, I think, for the mission, so not too bad. And it was yeah, it was alright in the end. And yeah, that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Thanks to my Patreon members. Get yourself a loaf because he's a goddamn professional and he saved me again. And I'll be back soon.